Hi, pre-notification gang. Thanks to the resub Majin Weeaboo. Morning. I hear you hit it big on the stocks, Rex. Congrats. Didn't you just play Overwatch? Yeah. Don't remind me. Thanks for the prime. Yig, it's Toilu? Jesus. Thanks to the resub Decky. I'm reading about this Robin Hood shit, man. God damn. Yeah, there's a lesson with Daniel today. Well, hello then, Bean. And thanks for the bits, Fluster. Yeah, I guess Robin Hood's now in the pocket of the corrupt hedge fund people. Fucking blocking trading on it, or blocking purchasing of GameStop and all the others. Fucking nuts. There's the resub Dats, Vudo, and Emir. And thanks to the Prime Davies. And thanks to the resub Melix. I don't have any stacks. Thanks to the resub Coco and the Prime Frogman and Bits Jcash. Thanks to the Tier 1 Tio's Fart. Is the Robinhood app a scam? Well, I know it works, but it definitely seems like they're pretty corrupt. Just blocking fucking trading for the most popular stocks right now. Thanks to the Prime Poisoned Horror and resub Super Salty. Thanks to the Tier 1 Stank Snacks and resub Evan and Prime Monkey. That's good to hear, Visositator. I haven't seen it yet. I did see the email though, I just haven't read it, so I did actually find it this time. Am I going to play the medium? It came out today. Maybe you'll have a reason to open your Xbox. Is it Xbox exclusive? And I also thought the medium was a show, not a game. Oh, it's this game. I remember seeing this at the, what was it? Game Awards or something? Yeah, fuck, sure. I'll play it. I'll actually open the Xbox tonight. We'll play it. Thanks to Tier 1 CJ Baseball and Tier 1 Otis and Resub Masturbator. And thanks, Handjob Goblin. Thanks to the Resub Skittle. We do more Pokemon cards? Yeah, but not today. Thanks to the Prime Unlucky Gamer. And thanks for the bits, Pie Power, and gift sub Ghosty Toasty. Start. The fuck are you talking about, man? I have to wait for Daniel. Thanks to the 5 gift subs, Jay Kinney. Oh, that's a good idea, Jello. Now we've got the right idea. I suppose so, J Cash. It's great to hear, Mushrooms. And thanks for the bits, Danny. And Ghosty and the resub Pharmacist and Tier 1 Quinn. And bits Derp. And resub Red Dot. And Cobby. It's an early stream because it's a lesson with Daniel today. Thank you the 5 gift subs, Quinn. And the resub Ling. And Longhouse Cat. Thank you, Quinn. And thank you bits A-dubs. What do you mean, what the fuck is Slime Mold Master Race? What's that? Is that another stock? Thanks to the bits, Nas, and A-dubs. You hear what Reddit's doing? No, what are they doing? Is the Prime Blinding and Pie Power and resubbed Lordvin and Prime Papa Beard. Or Papa Bear. Alright, looks like Daniel's ready. Thanks to the Prime Birdman and resub Guz.
Good morning.
Good morning, man.
Thank you for getting up so early.
Oh, no worries. When Daniel calls, I answer.
I think this is our equivalent of like 4 a.m. But
yeah,
I think I'm gonna make it worth your while.
That's what I like to hear. And no, I'm not in
Awesome.
GME
Well,
yet.
first of all, I've been seeing you grinding hundreds of games literally, so
yeah,
good job on that. I was happy to see that. How have the 3-minute games been going? Have you been
fucking
overwhelmed? Has it been looking better?
Terrible. It varies between absolutely abominable and sometimes like a steamroll. But yeah, it's still tough. They have not been clean, as I'm sure you've seen if you checked any of them.
I thought you won all of the games. You basically beat Icaro on a Smurf account. I mean,
that's true. I gave Hikaru a run for his money. I did do that.
You did. It was closer than most of his games on the speedrun. But so a couple of things. First of all, I mean, there's a lot I want to get done, so I'll be taking some notes this lesson. So if I'm like silent for a couple of seconds, that means I'm probably writing something. Just warning you, that'll happen.
Okay, no worries.
But overall, I thought that
Dandy,
your
Pappy, and the Prime
Asen in the 3-minute games was like vastly superior to what. Remember that you know, during PogChamps 1, you actually played some 3-minute chess, and you like could barely make 15 moves. Now you're playing entire games, so I think there's definitely improvement there. Do you know what time control PogChamps is actually going to be?
Nope, no clue.
Okay, I'm gonna assume it's like 5-10 minutes. So you'll definitely have more time.
Adam.
So it's good that you're getting that exposure. Okay, so again, I'm totally flexible on the plan, but let me tell you what I was thinking, and then you could provide your input.
Lexi and Brad and Prime
so
Finn.
Maybe we can start with like one warm-up game. Then we definitely have some openings to review. and you've actually been doing a really good job playing those openings during your games. How has the Sicilian been? How has the Vienna been? I saw that you looked at it with Levy.
Yeah, so
how has that been going?
Pretty good for the most part, I think. It just when it comes to like, I was also doing the French defense for if they play Queen side. That one feels a little sloppy from time to time, but the other two are feeling pretty clean. Thanks to reset.
I feel like a dentist asking you if you had any toothaches recently.
Thank you for the raid.
I'm holding a pen in my hand. It's like a drill.
Good.
Okay, that's good to hear. Your results actually have been really, really good. So you've played 107 games in the Sicilian. I've ran some stats. You won 57 games and lost 47, so you have a pretty hefty plus score.
Good.
And in the Accelerated Dragon itself, you also have a pretty big plus
I really
score,
appreciate it, Wolfie.
So we're definitely going to do some review on the basis of the data that I now have about what your opponents actually play. And then the main thing that we're going to do is a drill that I've prepared where I basically went through your last 200 masterpieces. They were all wins, and I really had a hard time finding any mistakes that you made. But the mistakes that I did find, I assembled into a sort of database where I created 10 of what I believe to be are your most instructive mistakes. So I'm going to give those positions to you from your games in the form of a puzzle. We're going to discuss what your mistake was, and then I'm going to ask you to try to improve on your mistake. And I've tried to select 10 positions that cover a lot of different topics, so we're really going to try to build your positional knowledge, and we're going to smooth out the way that you win winning positions. So I'm going to try to touch all of the bases through the lens of that drill.
Sounds great, man. Now this is some serious shit here. All right.
It is. I'm pulling the full Russian School of Chess on you.
Okay.
Full tilt Russian School of Chess, and I'm gonna. My voice box is pretty active this morning as well. So you better get those right.
I'm ready.
All right, but let's start with maybe one warm up game. Okay. Just to fucking wake up, and I also need to drink my coffee. So.
All right, I'll hop in.
Nothing better than to watch you suffer while I sip on my.
Oh, there will be no suffering here. I'm gonna go nuts.
All right. He's playing the Accelerated Dragon.
Yeah.
All right, it's good. E5's a good move, covering. Okay, knight d4. Good. Man, you're like blasting out of the gates. It's like Formula One.
I know. So I played
faster than I play. You're playing well, actually.
Thank you. I've played this so many times now. Most players play like the exact same set of shit.
Right. Well, a lot of people who play the Sicilian, they play it because they heard it somewhere, and they don't really study it, which is good. Knight a4, interesting. So you're attacking that pawn on c5.
Yeah, that was the plan. No, I'm just going to chase the knight away, or he's probably going to take the knight here.
All right, now he's attacking your e5 pawn, so think about how you can defend that.
I think just pushing the pawn.
Very good. The best way to defend a pawn is with another pawn. Now, is he threatening anything?
With the fork at b5, I believe.
Right. So you really only have one choice. There's a piece that you have to move away so that b5 is no longer a fork.
Yeah, I think the only piece I can move away right now is the bishop.
Bingo. You can move it anywhere. Okay. Thank you very much, Chris Havuse. Very good. Man, I didn't know you were this good in the morning. Oh my god.
Ooh.
Who was the one who just woke up?
Yeah.
Really, it was Chris HVSE. Man, these names really roll off the tongue. Is that a Bernie Sanders?
Yeah. That's Bernie with the mittens right there. That was probably actually Bernie.
He actually plays chess, which is funny.
Thanks to Baka extra long in the prime.
Okay, that was pretty smooth. I have 2 quick notes on that game, if you don't mind.
Yep. Thank you for the bits, Nas.
Didn't you miss the analysis board?
Oh, of course.
You've been dreaming about it all of these days.
Oh, absolutely.
So, very well played in the opening. Couple of nitpicky notes. First of all, technically the move castles should have lost a pawn. How can black win a pawn?
I'm assuming it's going to be the e5 pawn, but
Yep.
oh,
Well, defending it.
yeah, he just pushes up another pawn right at d6.
So that offers a trade. That doesn't actually win the pawn. So what's defending the e5 knight?
Just I see.
E5 pawn, sorry.
He just takes my knight and then takes the pawn.
He takes your knight and takes the pawn. And then there's a concept that we'll talk about a little bit later that's going to help you see like undefended pieces and pawns a lot faster. But basically, he could have done that. So what could you have done here to reinforce that pawn one more time?
Just develop the bishop.
Bingo.
F4.
So you could develop the bishop. There's this like phrase coined by a grandmaster years ago that says bad bishops defend good pawns. And I actually think grandmaster is really known for their like poetic sayings. But you can see that this bishop is, I mean, it looks stupid. It's just kind of staring at the pawn. But this pawn is almost like an extension of the bishop because it's clamping down on essentially his entire position. What if black tries to play d5 here?
Just en passant.
Very good. So does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
This bishop may look bad, but in reality, it's fulfilling this crucial duty of supporting that pawn.
Superfluous.
Okay, so the only other thing is this idea of knight a4 is a very good one, but you had a much better way to execute it.
Oh, just bringing it to e4 instead.
Bring it to e4, because in addition to attacking c5, let's say that he would have defended the pawn. Where else can this knight go?
I just go up to d6.
Look at this frickin' juicy square. I mean, when I look at this square, I mean,
I can feel it. Yeah,
I'm tongue-tied. You don't understand. I don't get a chance to put knights on squares like this anymore. Grandmasters don't allow this. Now, I want you to notice something. This rook on a8. What can you tell me about it?
Well, it's got the entire light diagonal open.
Right, and it's undefended, right?
Yeah.
You can exploit that rook. How? It's a two-move sequence that wins a rook. It's a really nice idea, actually.
I take knight with knight and then bring queen up to f3.
Bingo. That's a fork, right? You attack the mate and you attack the rook. Black has to defend against the mate. Very nice. So the moral here is that when you're doing something, try to do it through the center. When you center your pieces or you play through the center, there's a pretty, that's generally going to be the best way to go. That's not to say you can never bring your knights to the rim. And this move actually wasn't that bad. But try to do it through the center if you can.
Yeah.
So c3 was great. And then this move, bishop e2, makes complete sense, right?
Yeah, avoiding the fork.
Staying out of b5, which he played anyway. And you'll see that people do this all the time. If you constantly focus on preventing your opponent's threats, at your level, people can't handle that. They'll like stubbornly put their head down. I want to fucking play b5. Okay, well, give up the pawn. Very nice. Any other points in this game that you wanted to bring up?
Felt good.
How about one more? That was like...
Yeah, sounds good.
Breakfast. That was fucking breakfast. I like the speed. Uh-oh. The famous Morale from Argentina. I think you should resign now.
Yeah, this guy's kind of scary. He's up in the thousands again.
He is. This guy, I think, was in the 11th century epic on chess. The checkmate of Morale. Right. Another Sicilian. All right, so one more piece to develop.
Yeah. I'm thinking just e3.
Sure. That's actually not a great move, but the reason it's not a great move is something I'll show you after the game.
Okay.
Can you open up the center?
Yeah, I can push d4.
That would be a good move because he's just softened up that knight on c6. So once he takes, and he probably will take on d4, you take with a knight, and you can... Oh, he doesn't. Okay, well, that's a pretty big mistake because what can you do with that d4 pawn?
I can just push it again up to d5.
Very nice.
Do I want to take with the pawn first, or do I want to take bishop?
Either is good, but I like taking with the pawn because that chases the knight away. And look carefully at his king. There is a certain diagonal that you can use to access his king.
Yeah. That's just...
First, you can chase the knight away. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he can only block check with a bishop, and it's going to be a free bishop once the knight
Right,
moves.
free rook. So he's gonna have to move his king basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. He can also block with his knight actually from d7.
Ah, I didn't even notice. You're right.
He does. But now look at this bishop on b5. You can stick it in further. You have an outpost for that bishop.
Yeah, just did c6.
Bingo. And if he takes, then that pawn replaces the bishop. And his pieces are so passive that he's going to have a very hard time dealing with that pawn. Even if you lose that pawn, you'll still benefit. Can you defend that pawn?
Yeah, I can bring the queen up.
Bingo. Excellent. This is looking good. He's definitely playing well, but you're in great shape. Now, try to get the queen back, but also keep defending the pawn.
Yeah, just keeping it on e4 here.
Nicely done. So his best move is to play pawn to d5. Okay, he castles. Now, he wants to play pawn to d5 and sever the connection between your queen and the pawn. Can you prevent that move while bringing another piece into the game?
Yeah, I can just bring over the a rook.
Mm-hmm.
Would it matter which rook I'd bring in that position or no?
We'll talk about that. The a rook is the best.
Okay.
And that's an instructive point. I've noted that down. I like that you're asking that question, though. That's a big boy question. It's like a rite of passage. The first time you ask which rook should be. Okay, so look at which pawns are weakest and attack them. There's one pawn in particular. You're staring at it.
Yeah, it's that the c5. If he takes, I win queen. Oh,
well, no.
no.
The new pawn defending. It's
Yeah,
the d6 pawn. The d6 pawn is the backward pawn. Can you attack it?
Developing the knight, but no. I don't see where. Oh.
Bishop. You see, the pawn is on a dark square. You have a dark square bishop. Okay, big shit.
Okay, should I take with the rook or the bishop here?
Well, your queen is attacked.
Queen's
I would move the queen maybe to f5. Stay aggressive. And look at that queen. It's staring at f7 and h7. What piece could you bring in to help the queen begin an attack against this king? And you can do that right now.
Bringing the knight over to g5,
Do
right?
it. Yep. And he can't defend both h7 and f7 at the same time. Nice. He's probably going to go queen f6 would be my guess. Although I've never predicted anything ever, so.
I imagine I just trade there since I'm down to 30 seconds.
No, you'd actually take on h7.
Okay.
Because that would basically checkmate the king.
Well, if he blocks my queen, though, so I take with the knight.
So what move? Okay, so he's missed checkmate in 2 moves.
Yeah, so it's h7.
Yep.
And then it's just bringing it down.
Very nice. I think he's probably smashing some objects in his room right now. He thought that he could flag Turbo Fisto. Very nice. Okay. So a couple of things to unpack there.
I missed quite a few in this one. Thanks to the resub FedEx. Background, Pebble, right. The prime She Susan. And Kermit.
Okay, so another Sicilian. You played just fine. Now we'll talk about the proper response to the Sicilian. Now this move is a very instructive mistake.
Okay.
And what you need to notice here is this. I've highlighted the bishop and the knight. What can you tell me about them?
Forkable square d4 for a pawn.
Go ahead, and what should black do? You've already answered the question. Now it's a matter of just applying it.
Yeah, so he just pushes here first.
Exactly, and this bishop, unfortunately, it's like the worst possible placement for these 3 pieces.
Yeah, and then he takes.
Right, bishop basically has to move. And this is a fork. Black wins a piece. So instead, I would get the bishop either to f4 or to g5.
Okay.
Probably to g5. And the thing is, this isn't, I think maybe the reason, not to put words in your mouth, but maybe the reason you didn't go to g5 is because you're not pinning the queen, right?
Right.
But developing isn't, I always say this like during the speedrun, not every one of your pieces has to be working on like a COVID distribution plan. It's okay for a piece to just be sitting on a particular square and not doing anything in particular. It is doing something. It's putting like some pressure on his position. Also, it's discouraging him from going d5. Why? What happens if he goes d5 here?
Well, I mean,
Also, what I just said was funny. You're supposed to laugh when a grandmaster makes a joke.
Was there a joke in there with COVID distribution?
Well, the bishop isn't creating COVID. That was a hilarious statement. I'm very offended that you didn't laugh.
I'm super. Oh man,
I think we might have to discontinue our coaching.
That was
so
my
what
fault.
Do I do here?
I think it starts with.
I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself.
It starts with taking, right, and then it's moving the bishop up.
So you take on d5. That's good. Now think about this pawn on d5. What is defending it?
Just that knight that's right now being attacked. Oh,
Yes.
and the queen.
What can you do about that knight?
I can take the knight.
You can take it. And he's got a choice. He can take either bishop. If he takes this bishop, what do you do?
Just take his bishop up there, right?
Yep. And then you do what?
I pin the queen to the king with the rook.
Oh, shit. That's even better than what I thought. Yeah, but if he takes with a knight, then what do you do?
Then do I bring up my knight to g5? No.
You have something you can take.
I just take the hanging pawn.
You take the hanging pawn. Bingo. You have an extra pawn. And finally, if he plays in this position, bishop takes f6, then?
Then I just take the pawn at d5.
With?
Bishop.
Very nice. And if he plays bishop takes c3 to try to get your bishop, what do you do? Now an in-between move comes to the rescue. Otherwise, you'd lose your bishop. So think about your bishop.
Oh, I take the knight, check, then I get the bishop back.
10 out of 10. You've redeemed yourself.
There we go.
All right. Our relationship continues. Very nice. And you're still up a pawn at the end of the day.
Right.
So that's one specific thing the bishop there does on g5. So here you open up the center. You go d5. E takes d5, forces his knight back to a3. Now, the reason that you wouldn't want to give a check first is because if you notice this pawn on d5, that pawn is very weak. So he actually threatens to capture it. So first, it's important to get his knight back. Now you go here, bishop c6. So this all made sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question of like which rook to get onto a square, I think like chapters have actually been written about that specific question. But the rule of thumb is that when you have
ACT1
rooks,
just Nerba,
and you want to decide which one to put on a particular square, you need to look at the other rook, the one that you're not putting on that square. And you need to understand whether that rook is going to have a good spot in the future. If you put,
just up the road,
let's say you have X rook and Y rook. If you put X rook on the square in question, will rook Y then also have a decent square? So can you answer that question in terms of rook 81? Is this rook going to have a good square?
Yeah. It'll have the E file.
Yeah, very hard question. Many choices. But what about rook fd1? Is the A rook going to have...
No, blocked by all the pawns.
It's blocked by all the pawns. And perhaps you could play a4, a5, but you see the relatively big difference. In most cases, there's going to be a clear distinction, right? If you put one rook on a square, the other rook really doesn't have any good squares.
Right, that makes sense.
That's a pretty advanced concept, but I'm happy we talked about it because, we're starting to pick up these small pieces and put them together. Great. And the only other thing, so bishop f4, so this move makes sense now, right?
Yeah.
Now, after bishop takes c3, there was an interesting try that you had, an in-between move. What am I talking about? And remember why you played bishop f4.
It was taking the pawn and attacking the queen, but I couldn't. Yeah, okay.
And you're now attacking two things. Now, what would you take the pawn with?
I'd take the pawn with the rook to pressure the queen.
But here's something really, really cool. So you're attacking the queen. It may seem that the queen has to move and then you take the bishop. But this is a very dangerous situation. You've got to be very careful when you're almost putting his pieces on hold, because the queen could move and threaten something, and then you wouldn't have the capacity to take the bishop because you have to respond to the threat. And it may not seem that the queen can move and threaten something, but it actually can. Can you spot the move? It's actually a really cool tactic.
Is it one move or is it a sequence?
It's one move, but the idea is revealed on move 2, basically.
Okay.
And the queen doesn't have too many squares to begin with, so you can sort of use process elimination.
Really, there's nothing it can do on the dark tiles here. Pretty much all of them are covered. Well, literally all of them are covered. What I looked at was going c8 and then coming out to a6, but I don't think that's it.
Yeah, that's okay, but you're going after this pawn which nobody has cared about since the 16th century. So instead, the queen can play a more big boy game.
Yeah, so
it's white's queen.
Yeah, so it's going to e8 instead.
Right. And it might seem like, okay, big shit, I just take the queen and then I take the bishop. But what does black take on e8 with?
It takes with the knight and attacks the rook.
Bingo. And you see what the danger is of like screwing around when you've got a hanging piece. Now, white is still okay here. White can play the move rook d8, but I just wanted to illustrate this notion of in-between moves. You want to look for them, but you want to be very careful when you're making an in-between move.
That makes sense. Okay.
Other than that, you played perfectly. Queen f5, keeping things aggressive, and now knight g5, forking these two pawns. Now, what did you mean when you were like, I would trade queens?
So
which move are you referring to?
Yeah, for some reason I thought playing f6 blocked h7 in my head. I guess I just didn't see it, so I was like, I'd have to trade.
I see. So if he plays queen f6, I just want you to finish the game off, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, it's still the same thing. I just take here.
So. Okay, and now where's the mate?
And then...
Now you gotta be very precise, because the king has an escape route via e7, so you got to try to close that off with tempo.
Yeah, it's taking with the rook, right? No, is it taking with the bishop? But then he just takes.
But the rook is defending the bishop.
Oh well, but then he just takes with the queen, right? That frees the check. I take this and it continues.
Well, you're up a queen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I was only able to get you an extra queen.
No. I thought you were okay. I misunderstood. I thought I was still gonna get a checkmate somehow, but this wins the queen.
Yeah, well, you will. It's checkmate in another couple of moves.
Okay, I get you.
But that's actually I'm joking, but it's actually an important moment when you're going after checkmate. Sometimes it's a good idea to keep your mind open for things that, let's say, win a queen.
Mm-hmm.
So don't get too fixated on, I have to deliver checkmate within 3 moves, and then you toss away options which result in, like, let's say, an extra queen. So these transformations of the advantage, you always have to keep your eyes peeled for them, particularly if you're in time pressure, you're not seeing checkmate. Sometimes there's like something that may not be like the computer's best move, but still wins the game.
Okay, makes sense.
All right, perfect. Well done. So now a choice between 2 incredibly glamorous things, openings and the drill. Do you have a preference for what we start with?
Thank you, Finn. Whatever you're feeling, no preference for me, you know that.
Okay. Let's do openings at the end since we did a lot of openings last time. Okay. And let's go into the drill. So I'm going to give you 10 positions, and you'll quickly see like how this works. Some of them are going to be very easy. Some of them are going to be challenging. No rush on answering any of the questions, but it would be great if you could walk me through your exact thinking process, because I'll be taking, obviously, like a lot of notes. All right. So let's start with the following position.
And thank you, Glenn.
And hopefully this works. I'm crossing my nuts.
There's the prime analyst.
All right. Let me know if. Whoops. Shit. 1 sec. Yeah, we can stick on this position.
Thanks to resub, Lydia.
All right. Do you see the new position?
Yeah.
Perfect. So this is from a game that you were playing as white against the famous Francis 7 Fu. And black played bishop takes g2.
Yeah.
And now I'd like you to first tell me what the best move is. And that's the way I'm going to do it. I'm not going to tell you what you played to make it a little bit harder.
I think I remember this game. I just moved the rook to e1, if I recall correctly.
That is what you did.
But I'm pretty sure I lost this game.
That is also true. And you had a better move in this position.
Is it just taking the knight, giving up the rook?
And what do you do now?
No, I just take back the bishop with bishop.
Yeah, or with the rook. With any piece, really. And why is this good for white?
Well, it's 2 pieces for 1 rook.
Right.
I also now have the light squares open.
Exactly. So in general, if you think about 2 pieces for a rook, 2 bishops is the best combination of 2 pieces you could have in the middle game. And another rule of thumb is that the rook is usually better than 2 pieces in an endgame. Because, as you can understand, when you have a knight and a bishop, they have a very hard time coordinating if there are no other pieces. But in conjunction with queens and rooks, the minor pieces usually are better. Because you can see already the bishop exerting pressure on h7. If black castles, you're going to already have a battery basically set up. How can you complete that battery?
I need to get the queen to h file.
Not necessarily. You can put it on a square and threaten checkmate already.
Just bringing it to g4. Or
how does that threaten checkmate?
It does not threaten checkmate. Never mind.
It's e4.
Oh.
It's the Naroditsky super shitter. How could you have missed that?
I can't believe I didn't see that.
I think you had this H-file idea fixated in your mind. And now, I mean, this is a pretty serious threat. Black doesn't have an easy way to defend against it. And if black plays g6, this creates weaknesses on his king side.
Yeah, hook, right?
What would be the fastest way, you better get this right, of involving the rook in the attack?
It's just bringing up the f pawn, right? f4 and push it again.
Will you be able to push it to f5?
Well, nope, doesn't seem like it.
Doesn't seem like it. So one idea that you have, and this is just something that's a little new to, is to play king h1 and rook g1. So if the g file is open, then sometimes sliding the king over and then bringing the rook to g1 is the fastest way to get the rook into the attack. Just like file that away in your mind, because that's a pretty cool attacking idea.
Okay.
So, but other than that, the key here is that 2 bishops in the middle game usually stronger than a rook. Very good. Next position. And you can stop me at any point if you have questions or you're unclear. All right. This is against Succulent Orange.
A very strong player.
One of the best games of your career, really. Although you lost it, but we won't talk about that. So in this position, you were playing black, so flip the board so you're facing black. And your opponent played the move knight to b5. Now it is your move. Try to find the best move for black.
Well, I don't think it's a queen. I don't think it's a queen move. Is it just bringing bishop to a6, pinning the knight to the bishop? If the knight moves, I take bishop, he takes with queen, I take knight, deliver a check, and then win a rook?
Okay, so you just said a lot of shit, and very little of it was correct.
Perfect.
So after bishop a6, first of all, you said that pins the bishop. So that doesn't actually pin the bishop because white's bishop is defended.
Yeah.
So a pin is something where if the piece that is pinned moves, then you win the piece that is on the other end of the pin.
I guess I was just thinking too long term. So if he does move that...
What is white going to do here? Did you ask yourself what white's threat was?
No, I didn't. Oh, he was just... The only thing I saw was just threatening the check on d6, but I mean... yeah, d6, but I don't see what that would win.
It wouldn't. Well, there's another check.
Oh, Jesus, c7.
That's right. Don't make me make you solve those fork problems again. And after king d8, you've actually given white an all-you-can-eat buffet. He can even take the bishop if he wants. Or, what else can he take?
Just the rook.
Of course, he can take the rook. So, coming back to the starting position, try to find black's defense here. And there are several decent moves. None of them are glamorous, but you have to find a way to defend against the fork.
d8 king.
Yeah, so king d8 is one move. You could also go at it from the other end. Like, you can move either the king or...
the rook. To bring rook b8, yeah.
And this would be marginally better because it does pressure the knight a little bit. You could even defend the square by going queen a5, but this is not a great idea because remember, you don't want your queen basically fulfilling this very menial task. You want your queen doing more
Freya
important
and the
stuff.
resub Huffler and Mystic.
So this is prophylaxis. A rook b8 is prophylaxis. And you've got to get back into the habit, especially when there's a move that occurs in your quadrant of the board. That's a very rough, but I think a good rule of thumb. You should particularly be alert to those moves because they are more likely to create threats.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I didn't record what you actually played, but you allowed the fork.
Yeah,
and you won the rook. And there was some back and forth that happened afterwards, but if you just moved the rook, you'd be winning here. Clear?
Yep.
All right. Now, the next one is going to be a slightly different structure. I'm going to tell you the move that you played. I'd like you to tell me if this move is good or bad, and explain. So you played the move knight c2 in this position.
It doesn't attack anything. I think it's a strong position, but I don't really get anything out of it. If he just drops the queen back, I have nowhere to go, and I still don't take anything, so bad.
Wait a minute.
Oh, wait, the rook.
The queen back.
Yeah, I take the rook. He has to move the rook first, then the queen.
Right, that's what you said initially, of course. And what's wrong with the placement of the knight?
It just doesn't attack anything once the rook moves, and I have nowhere to go.
You have nowhere to go. That's the more important part, is trapped. So where would you go?
Instead of going c2, I guess just drop it back, right? So bring it over to like d5.
Exactly. And here's the interesting thing. You actually went on the previous move, knight d5 to b4.
Mm-hmm.
And then your opponent plays c3. And my old coach would call this saying sorry. It's when you make a move and your opponent responds to that move, and then you realize that you played a really shitty move. Oftentimes, just bringing the piece back to the square that it came from is the much better option. But often we stubbornly go for the plan that we had initially created, even if we kind of know deep inside that it's bad.
Makes sense.
So maybe you thought that knight c2 was a fork, but remember that if you play a move, you realize, oh shit, I fucked up, which never happens. I mean, you never do that. This is for this is for mere mortals. You can always, or not, you can't always do this, but you can sometimes bring your piece back to where it came from. And that's the much better, the lesser evil. So knight d5. Okay. And also be very careful about your pieces getting trapped within your opponent's territory.
No, if I did, let's say I still played that move like an absolute idiot, what would be a decent follow-up? The only thing I saw was like maybe moving queen a5, attack that pawn. If he like drops his queen back, I don't know.
Which pawn does this attack?
Just, never mind, bishop covers it.
It pressures the pawn, but it doesn't attack. Now, actually, I spent some time thinking about, and I gave myself a little bit of a challenge, would I be able to find a way to extricate the knight?
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I came up pretty dry. You actually played an interesting move, although I don't know if your intention was to do what I'm about to show you. You played rook b8.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, your opponent played bishop b3, which is correct. It's the only way to trap the knight. If he had moved his queen back to attack the knight, you would have been able to get the knight out. How?
Fuck, I don't remember.
So rook b8, what does that move do? It creates an x-ray.
Yeah, it's looking at the rook through the pawn at b2. So, it's making... I see what... Yeah, it's just bringing the knight over to a3.
Bingo. And again, undefended pieces are so important here.
Yeah.
And x-rays are going to come up again. They're incredibly important. Whenever any set of pieces are on the same file, or if it's bishops on the same diagonal, no matter how many pieces are between them, you have to pay attention to that, because that kind of shit, it often leads to tactics a lot faster than somebody might think. Good. So knight back to d5 preserves the extra piece. This came from a Sicilian, by the way, so you got a great position. All right. Problem number 5. And I know this is a bit tedious, but hopefully it'll pay off in the end. Now, face white. You were playing white here against Grober DM, another very famous player. And once again, I'm going to tell you the move that you played, and I'd like you to tell me if that move is good or bad, and then propose an alternative if it's bad. Hint, it's bad. Why is it bad? You played g4. So first, why is the move bad?
It hangs my... Well, it doesn't hang my knight. Nothing was defending it to begin with. But, well, my knight's undefended at h4. The pawn... He can just drop the bishop back to, like, f7 to get it away from any danger.
Well, you started well, but then you trailed into the wrong direction. You said the knight is undefended, right? Let's expand that for a second. Is anything staring at the knight?
The bishop at e7.
That's another X-ray. And X-rays are, it's like the, what is that shit called? When it turns into a butterfly caterpillar? But before the
Metamorphosis, right?
But that's the process through which it turns. But like there's that caterpillar, but before the caterpillar, it's like a larva.
Larva, okay.
So if X-ray is the larvae, then discovered attacks are the butterfly.
Yeah.
When you see an X-ray, you need to understand that that may blossom into a butterfly. So now that I've spun this beautiful analogy, you definitely will find the move.
Yeah, he just takes the pawn, right? And then that, if I take his knight, he just takes... Wait, no, he doesn't take the pawn.
No.
Is that right?
Ahead. That's absolutely right. So can you make the move?
He's...
Very nice. Now, what may have deterred you is the fact that you're attacking his bishop. But calculate further. What happens after he...
Check.
Why can't it's check? That's actually what happened. And the problem here isn't only that you lose a pawn. It's that your king has to get out, and you understand that that's pretty disastrous in the middle game.
Right.
It's not that bad, but nonetheless, how could you have ensured that this doesn't ever become a problem? That's why knights on the rim can be bad.
Were you going to say grim?
Grim, yes, but I decided to avoid the cliche.
Let's see.
Or dim. The British say knights on the rim are dim.
I could just castle at this point.
But could you not make me nervous with this knight?
I could just bring the bishop to f2.
But why aren't you moving the knight? Are you like attached to the hip to the h4 square?
I just don't see a good square for it. If I bring it over to f5...
Open your eyes. Yeah, that's the square.
That's a good square for it? Okay.
Is there anything wrong with it?
No, I guess not. I just didn't occur.
I think it's a very sexy square, actually. But, you know, I may be wrong. But you're attacking g7. It's sometimes called knife f5. Can he castle? Like
no. The bishop's looking that way. Yeah.
So believe it or not, black actually has a really hard time defending this pawn. He can't play rook g8. Your bishop's attacking the rook.
He can't just push up the pawn and chase the knight away?
Well, the knight's then going to go to g7. And where's the king going to go? If the king goes to f8, then what happens?
Oh, I deliver a check at e6 and I win the queen.
Very nice. Now, if the king goes up to d7, then you've already accomplished a lot. Now, you can actually win one of his pieces through a move that you did play in the game. But now this move is actually very strong. Look at his bishop on h5.
It's just pushing the pawn up here?
Absolutely. You sound surprised.
Yeah, I was looking at a check on the either b5 or e6.
Well, e6 would be a really good move, actually, also. This would go for checkmate, which would be legitimate. Now you can try to open the center. You're actually... Ooh, that's a sexy checkmate. You're threatening a mate with d5. That's really cool, actually. Well, he takes with a knight, and then you take with checkmate, because this bishop is going to stop the king's escape to b6.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe black can try to, like, somehow escape. So this would be very much possible, but g4 would be the greedy approach. I think the fact that I haven't had breakfast is reflecting in my suggestions, you know.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It makes sense that this traps the bishop, right? And the knight has this escape square in e6. So that's the difference between the previous position and this position. It's okay to bring one of your pieces into your opponent's territory if either you can chart an escape route for that piece, or that piece is indispensable to an attack. Like, you may eventually want to sacrifice this knight, but the knight served the greater good of getting the king out into the open.
Likeness, right? Shadow. Makes sense to me.
Great. So knight f5 would actually have been a very good square, and always look for the x-rays. If you have an undefended piece and your opponent is staring at that piece, even if it's through another one of his pieces, you got to start looking for those discovered attacks.
Okay.
Nice. Okay. Now, the next one is going to be one of your favorites, one of your old favorites. Now, you were playing black in this position.
I think I lost on time here if I had to guess.
You did. So I am going to force you to win this position without... Now, what you did is... I mean, you actually tried to promote this pawn. You, for some reason, made a knight.
This was during the tournament. Yeah, for some reason, I clicked queen, but it made a knight.
Well, here's the hilarious thing. I've actually done that a couple of times, where when you try to really quickly promote, it's easy to accidentally click the knight.
No, it was a glitch with chess. It was chess.com. Yeah.
Well, so was your face. But that was a low blow, sorry. But I want you to win this position as quickly as you can without touching this a-pawn.
Yeah, I imagine it starts here, and then I just get the queen over.
Well, is that the best pawn to take?
Oh, I just take this one first.
Yep. Why are you taking that pawn? Does anybody give a single damn about that pawn?
Because I don't really... I guess I go here. No, that doesn't work either. Then I just give it up.
Move. That's a good That's a great move because the rook is untouchable.
But how do I finish it though? Do I just drop it here?
You can do that, but why don't you attack that g2 pawn?
Oh, do it with the rook instead?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, no matter what he does,
okay.
Bingo. 4 moves. Now, you could also, rook f3 is a fancy move, but how else could you get the rook onto a square such that it attacks g2 without lifting it through the f file? Find an alternate route for me.
So without doing a rook lift, I want to get it to the g file to attack it? Okay.
Well, not to the g file, but to a square where it attacks
it.
g2.
Okay. Then the only thing I see is just dropping it and then going up, so just like even something like e8 and then push all the way up.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Nice.
Okay.
So e8, e2, and then queen takes g2. So you've been doing a much better job than you did earlier at winning position. But what I'm seeing is that you sometimes try to take all of your opponent's pawns, or you try to promote like 18 queens before you actually start checkmating it. If you have a queen and a rook, and he has only pawns, that is enough material to give checkmate. And it's usually going to be inefficient to try to promote another queen.
Yeah, I think that... So the main thing is, since these are all 3-minute games, I really feel like I take too long finding checkmates, so I just go for the simplest things, like getting an extra queen and just finishing it in like 3 moves.
Right, that makes sense. Sometimes that's a valid point, but the key to winning this position is to identify the mating squares. On what squares are you going to actually deliver the checkmate?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing this g2 pawn, right? He has no resources to defend anything. So like in this position, I'm already seeing that the g2 pawn is going to be the mating square.
Okay.
And I'm get my pieces onto squares that attack the pawn. Now, what about king g4? Last thing, can you mate me here in 2 moves?
It's just the same thing, right? I'm just dropping queen down to f4 now.
Very good, and then king h5 in your head.
Then I'm just bringing the queen over to g5.
Nicely done. Here you just basically only use the queen. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, next position. Number 7. Now this was a weird one, and maybe it was some sort of a glitch or maybe a mouse slip. Now this position, see, I always think the best of you.
Yeah.
I never think that you'll actually make a mistake like this. Now your opponent, you were playing white.
Mm-hmm.
Your opponent plays rook takes c3. White to play.
What move did I make? Let's see. I don't recognize the game, but I'm imagining it was a bad queen move.
It was against, how did you not know? Pinguemito. Come on.
Oh boy.
You were well versed in.
Oh, now that you've said his name, I know who he is.
Right. It's interesting because you're falling into the same exact illusion that you fell during the game. You're missing something. Easy.
Yeah, I don't see what I'm missing. I don't see anything hanging. Like,
well, that's a big problem. You don't see anything hanging.
I mean, the only thing undefended is the queen.
I'm just gonna sip my coffee until you see this. Look at your freaking pawns.
I see them.
Yep. And do you see them though? How
Mhm.
about this pawn? You see that pawn too?
Well. Oh,
What does that pawn
Jesus,
do?
I just take the rook.
You take the rook.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, yeah.
So it's funny because I want to get to the bottom of that. I gave you the hard time, but now I want to get to the bottom of the solution. What do you think it is? Do you think it's the fact that these are doubled pawns?
I don't really know. It didn't even occur to me, actually. This happened
Did you
during the
see
tournament, too.
Yeah, it did. Like, you played queen g2, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god. So did you see this pawn?
No.
And did you not notice that it captured, or did this pawn sort of, you tuned it out?
It didn't even occur to me to look for that pawn take. I'm sure I saw it, and you even pointed it out now, and I didn't immediately see just take the rook.
Okay, so I noted that down. You know, I'll file this away under the like freak illusion kind of thing. But if it happens again, you know, I'll try to help you understand where exactly the visual illusion happens. Because this isn't even a chess thing. It's like you just got to notice all the pieces and pawns.
Yeah.
And at your level, the truth is you always have to be ready to take free pieces. Like, these blunders can come at any moment, and you have to be poised to exploit them.
Damn,
there comes the ambulance after that rook.
Yeah, goddamn. In a war zone.
Yeah, man, it's Jesus. I didn't know Charlotte was the site of the next war. Okay, so next position. Against Kusher. All right. So white to play. You're playing white.
Okay.
Find the best move. Right, if you would be so kind as to find this.
I think in this game I doubled up the rooks, right? Or did I not do that? Because that seems pretty strong here.
Yep. No, you actually played something weird. You played some bishop move, I think. But yeah, doubling the rooks is very simple. What's the idea?
I take the knight and I'm looking to back rank.
Yeah, and well, I would even stop you at the taking the knight part.
Yeah.
When you win a free piece, try to be like methodical in your thinking, because maybe he'll prevent the back rank checkmate. Even if like the back rank wasn't a thing, you would still win the knight. So yeah, very good. Okay, you could even play the fancy move bishop c1. That would also do the trick. And if he plays bishop takes d3 here, let's say you play bishop c1, he takes on d3. How should white respond to this? Should you take that knight, or should you make a preliminary move?
Yeah, I should definitely move the rook first.
Where?
Attacking the bishop, so d1.
Look at the hanging pawns, though. You see this pawn is hanging?
Oh, so defend that. I see. Yeah. Okay.
Defense always most important, and then you take the knight. Very good. So yeah, good. Rook fa1 though you found quickly, so that's good. Maybe you were just in time pressure here. All right, 3 more. So here we'll practice a little bit basic attacking techniques. Now, you sacrificed a piece. I was very impressed with this game, actually, which is rare. But I was, until you butchered it on the next move. He plays bishop takes f6. Now, currently, black is 2 pieces up. You have a winning move, well, I'd like you to find it. I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself. Although, if you find this move, then in my eyes, you would have won the game. Although that reminds me of this like really sad story, if you want to hear it, from when I was 7. It involves me crying.
Oh, yeah. That sounds wonderful.
So my first coach was like a typical Russian dude. He was a computer programmer and as his main job, but he coached a couple of young players.
Jesus.
And he was my first ever coach. I was maybe like 7. And I was rated like 1,300. So when I played my first ever game in the local chess club in San Francisco, there was a tournament, and there was a game every Tuesday night. It was called the Tuesday Night Marathon. So as a 1,400, I'm like super nervous. There's all these players assembling, and I get paired against like the ultimate Russian wizard, and his name was Henry Plotkin. He was 2000, and I saw the 2 in front of his name, and I was like, I have no chance, right?
Okay.
But I play the freaking game of my life. I outplay the shit out of him, and I'm up a rook. I still have the score sheet from that game back home. I'm up a rook, and then in the key position, I blunder and I let one of his pawns promote to a queen.
Oh, how embarrassing!
And there were 2 things that were horrible about this. The first is while the game was still going, my opponent on his score sheet already wrote, he circled black 1 and he was playing black before the game ended. That made me super angry. Of course, he was already winning, but I hadn't resigned yet. So that was kind of an asshole move. Yeah. But then my coach analyzed the game. And of course, I was crying after the game. And then we had a lesson the following day. And he basically said, I showed him the game, and for once he was super strict, but this time he was kind of soft about it, and he complimented me, and at the end he was like, in my eyes, you won the game.
Oh, I see.
And that like completely set me off, because like the regret came back of me like not finding that one move to win. And yeah, the rest of the lesson was like him getting queen X for me.
That's sweet though. What a nice guy.
That was the last time I ever cried.
That was the last time in your life you ever cried? My man.
Yeah. He also, that very same coach, don't get the wrong impression from him. There were some lessons where, I was about to get my arm chopped off for making certain moves. So that's where it comes from. Anyways, sorry for the detour.
All good. Yeah, I didn't see why this was right until now. It opens up the rook to attack the bishop.
It opens up the rook. And if king e7...
Yeah, I'm still just taking this, right?
Look again. What should you take the bishop with? Always question, and we'll talk about this in the next problem, but no autopilot. When you're attacking...
Oh, he has to go back. Yeah, so I win a rook.
Again, you're looking at these things. You're not
checkmate.
For the better move.
Checkmate.
Yeah. Always look for the best move. You're at that level where earlier I would be very satisfied if you just saw the freaking rook. But now I want you to really demand always looking at the best move, if you have time, of course. And if king f8...
Well, now I'm just taking the bishop with the rook.
Yeah, and it's a crushing attack. He's got to give up his queen, and it's crushing. Now, you played queen takes f6. What's wrong with this move?
We just trade queens.
You trade queens, and he's left with a piece.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very nice. So when you've sacrificed a piece, sometimes trading queens is just completely out of the question. And even if you have to play down a couple of pieces, it's still practically a better idea. All right. Now we sort of start to segue into openings. And this is from a game where you're black and you play the accelerated dragon. And for a change, your opponent played the main line with bishop e3. Now, you made a move, which is actually a very instructive mistake.
Thanks to the prime Apara.
You played the move e5. Now, could you tell me why this is a mistake, first of all? And there's 2 main reasons. One minor reason and one major reason.
Let's see. Well, he can stop me from castling by taking my knight and then pushing his bishop. Right? Isn't that a possibility?
Taking your knight, you would take here, and then going like this.
Oh, hold on. I accidentally left the board.
No worries.
Wait, which board are we on here? Now I'm lost.
The one against Morale.
There it is.
Yeah. So you meant bishop c5, right?
Yeah.
Reasonable idea. Yeah, that's definitely annoying. But even more annoying, look at this square on d6. You've abandoned that square. Can you get his knight there?
Yeah, in 2 moves.
Yeah, and you basically did the same thing in your warm-up game, where that knight on d6 is a devastating piece. And you're just sitting on him completely. There's nothing that black can do. If black plays d6, you still take the pawn on d6.
Yeah.
So the second reason is that this does blunt the bishop, which is something you don't want to do. That's the whole point of the accelerated dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And the rule of thumb is that you almost never want to move the g pawn and the e pawn in the same game.
Thanks to Prime Hoodie.
That's like a golden rule of the Accelerated Dragon. You almost never move the Epon in the Accelerated Dragon until the middle game.
Okay, so then one thing that pretty much happened in most of the Accelerated game, well, not most, but a lot of them, is I'll move this and they'll move that. What's the play from here?
You take the pawn?
Well, hold on. This isn't the right setup. It's usually not a knight on D. It's usually another pawn. At least hold on.
It's another pawn, okay.
I can't visualize it in my head right now.
So,
but it's usually defended. That pawn is usually defended, so I can't just take. So when they push that, where do I go?
You usually go to d5, but it really depends on how they do it. So when we do our opening review, I'll try to.
Okay.
We'll identify what this
tier 1
is.
streg.
If that's
resub main. Yeah.
And, I have one last problem for you, an easy one, and then we'll move on to the opening. And now this one's easy. You're playing white, and this is from an opening that you no longer play because you play the Vienna now. But your opponent played queen to d7 here. White to play.
I think it started with taking the knight would be my guess.
Yeah,
he has to take with the pawn.
He ruins his kingside, and now how do you attack this new very nice. Yeah. So you actually didn't take the knight, but I'm liking this. Yeah, knight d5, and then this knight can go out to h4, and the queen can come in through to h5. Very good. So those were 11 positions. Overall, you did very well. The problems that you struggled with, I noted them down. And for our next session, what I'll try to do is select puzzles and drills to precisely target those problems which you kind of struggled with.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's something that I'm going to try to do for the next time. But let's do some opening review if you're game for it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can stay on this position. I'm just going to paste in the starting position.
Thanks, Dawson.
All right. Do you see the starting position?
Yeah, it's just a fresh board.
Excellent. And can you give me like 2 minutes just to run to the restroom?
Yeah, I'll do the same. That's perfect.
Great.
Thanks to Brian Mossy.
Right, see you in a second.
I'm going to take a piss as well. And maybe we'll do YouTube tonight. I haven't decided.
All right. Excellent. Overall, and I assume Charlie's still in the bathroom. Overall, huge improvement. Thank you, Acheron. Thank you guys for all the support and the subs. Can't tell you how much I appreciate it and for being engaged in the lesson. I'll thank everyone properly after our session. Oh, he's back. Okay. Oh, you're back. Okay, but I can't hear him. Oh, he's not back. Okay.
He's a tier 1 split hair.
Thank you, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the session. This one's a more serious session. Okay. Yeah, I was just
talking shit.
Off at the top as usual. Talking shit. I mean, always. I mean, you know that by now. So, my proposal is that we focus on black today, and we just really cement things, and then next time we'll transition to white.
Okay.
Because we have some time. Does that sound good?
Works for me. Okay,
because the Sicilian's a pretty serious opening. I really want to make sure that we're covering everything. Okay. So we'll reconstruct what it is exactly that people do against you. Now, I'm seeing this 52 games, knight f3, and the second most common move is bishop c4, where you responded correctly to every time. Yeah, so I'm just looking to see if there's anything dangerous that was played against you.
I never had anything too wild. It's only that e-pawn will often be defended when they push it against my knight. Or they take my knight beforehand.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, so I was just checking to see against any of the weird moves, you responded correctly to all of them. Okay, so knight f3. Now knight c6. Okay, so 27 games d4. 11 games bishop c4. Let's quickly review bishop c4. Good. Now, most people have gone d3 against you.
The rule of thumb, I know in this position I don't bring up the g pawn next, right? This is bringing the knight up.
Nicely done. You don't bring up e6 and g6 at the same time. So here, it's a slightly different strategy. Okay, so bishop g5 has been played 3 times against you. You won all 3 games.
Okay, chase it away first, right?
You can. You don't necessarily have to, but you can go ahead and control the center now.
Okay, so I'd still just want to play this anyway.
Yep. And how are you going to deal with the spin?
If he takes the pawn, I take the bishop. If not, then I just...
Let's say bishop b3.
I just bring up the f7, right? f7 bishop, break it?
Yeah, bishop b7, exactly. Bishop e7, then you castle, then you can actually this bishop. So this would be a great example of not actually getting this bishop to g4, although you can. If he goes knight c3, you notice that he's putting pressure, pretty serious pressure on this pawn.
Mm-hmm.
So where would you put this bishop to remedy that?
And just over to e6.
Mm-hmm. And then let's say that both sides castle. And let's say that white plays a move like rook e1. So one really good plan here in this position is to try to get b5 in. How can you prepare that move?
By dropping that bishop back? No.
So remember that the best way to prepare a pawn move is usually with another pawn move.
Oh, so I just go a6 first.
A6? And does the purpose of b5 make sense?
Yeah, we're trying to chase away the knight, right?
Well, and we're also trying to trap the bishop. So let's make some random moves. So you're actually trying to trap the bishop. Another Naroditsky super shooter here.
Yeah, I see, okay.
The bishop is trapped. But,
Okay, so I imagine, though, most people, when they see this, then I didn't notice it, but I would guess they'll just push that a pawn next.
Yeah, you mean they'll play a3.
Yeah, and drop the bishop back.
That's, I think, what most people will do. But the thing is, after you play c4 anyway, although you don't trap their bishop, you can see that this bishop is completely buried.
Yeah, not active anymore.
It's staring at the pawn chain. If it goes to b1, it's going to be staring at the pawn. So white is virtually playing without a piece.
Okay.
You can play c7, then rook d8. And this is, again, a concept that, a couple of months ago I wouldn't have bothered bringing up. But now I think you can wrap your head around it.
Okay.
So, when you can make your opponent's pieces this passive for a prolonged period of time, that's a pretty big deal because they're basically playing without that piece.
That makes sense.
And yeah, so there's a good example of this in classical chess, but we'll talk about that later. So that's perfect. Now let's transition to the main move d4. Go ahead. Okay, so d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, 27 games. Yep. And now 16 people played knight takes c6. That's the most common move that's played against you.
Yeah. Almost everyone does.
Right. Knight c6. Now BC is correct. Now 8 people go knight c3. And that's the most common move.
It's still just feeding Ketoing, right?
Getting the bishop. Now 3 games bishop d2, 3 games bishop c4. Okay, bishop c4 is the more... I see what you're saying, I think. So bishop c4 is the more active move.
So I can't bring my knight up to where I want it because he just pushes that pawn and I can't take that pawn. So I'd have to drop the knight again.
Exactly the situation which you want to avoid.
Yeah.
Now, if you accidentally played into this situation, something that we talked about earlier, you actually have a very cool idea here that can help you get out of this. You can play knight g4. And this is only possible because there's a bishop on c4. Now, queen takes g4, what's the point?
All I can see is pushing that d pawn to attack the queen.
And attack what else?
The pawn.
Think again. You can win the piece back.
Oh, I see. Okay, if he en passant, I win the queen. Okay, so I'm just pushing up to d5.
Good, and then you win the bishop back.
Yeah.
So that's a crazy idea. But what I wanted to say is, even if you've allowed this and you don't have knight g4, you can always bring the knight back to g8. And it's not easy to just checkmate black. The knight can then redeploy itself through h6 and f5.
Okay.
So my point is, you're going to fuck up once in a while in these positions, and sometimes just bringing the piece back is better than, panicking and giving it up, for example.
Okay, so then where do I want to go then from here?
So you have 2 options here. One, the best move is to play queen c7.
Okay.
And the purpose of this move is to cover the e5 square with the queen. They're probably going to castle. And here you go knight f6. And e5 is not possible because of queen takes e5. Now, if they try to prepare e5 with the move f4, can you prevent e5 once again with your pawns this time?
Yeah, no, I can just bring up the d pawn.
Exactly. And now e5 isn't even that dangerous because the knight is the g4 square. Now you're going to castle. Remember that when they take on
tier 1
c6, they open up the b file for you. So you can always play the move rook to b8. And then you can slowly prepare the pawn break d5.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, yeah, the funny thing is against... you actually did play knight f6 here 3 times and nobody played e5. But now you're going to make sure that you play queen c7.
Yeah.
And yeah, so against bishop d2, which is a very awkward move. I mean, knight f6 here actually is okay because after e5, what additional square does the knight now have?
Now it has d5.
Yeah, but still, I wouldn't really bother with this move. Now, one of the reasons bishop d2 is bad is because the queen blocks the connection to d5. So you can just play the move d5. And after takes, if they give you a check on b5, how can you block this check?
With the bishop.
Does that give up the d5 pawn?
Oh, yeah, because now it's not defended by the queen.
Are you sure about that? Look at the whole board, look at what pieces are left undefended.
Oh, then I just win his bishop. If he takes with the knight, yeah.
And if he takes your bishop after bishop d7?
I take with the queen defending the pawn.
Very nice. So that's basically the lay of the land against these moves. The last thing that was played against you more than once is bishop to d3. And here, once again, you have a choice. And both times you played the move e5. Now you know that that's a bit of a mistake.
Yeah.
So here you can play the move d6 and then knight f6. Or you could play queen up to c7. That's also fine. Right, so the key is to prevent e5 first and then develop the knight.
So would you prefer me stopping that with the queen or with the d pawn?
Usually, I'll put it this way. I'll make it easier and say with the d pawn. There is a specific reason that after bishop to c4, queen c7 is marginally more accurate. But you know what? You can play d6 here anyway.
Okay.
This is fine. And then knight f6 and castles. So just stop it with the d pawn. And if they try to enforce it somehow, then remember that you always have this in your pocket.
Makes sense.
Great. So now let's briefly review the moves that are not knight takes c6. 6 games, knight c3, actually 9 games because you transpose continue. And now once again, a couple of people took on c6 and 3 games continued bishop e3. And 3 times you played this move e5, which we now talk through.
Yeah.
Is wrong.
In this position, I still want to just develop this because he can't push that pawn right now. It's defended.
Right. So the one person that you played this against, this was the game that we actually played together. was f4. And if they play f4 to prepare e5, you do what?
D-pawn.
Very nice. Now, the only time that you have to allow e5, they can play knight takes c6, b takes c6, and they can play the move e5.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the one line that you have to like memorize, because I'm pretty sure that this is going to happen against people who are slightly more advanced at this stuff. Now here, you actually drop your knight back. This is theory. You actually drop your knight back to g8. And black is actually in very good shape here. Trust me. I know it looks horrible at first, but you see that this pawn is hanging.
Yeah.
Now, most people are going to defend the pawn by playing f4, but now this knight can go where?
It can go h6.
Exactly, and from h6, where can it go?
f5.
Potentially. You can chill on h6. Now, how are you going to break into this pawn chain to make sure that this bishop is once again active?
Is it just pushing the d-pawn again?
You're a natural.
Okay.
But first, I would castle. So let's say they develop their bishop. I would first castle to make sure the king is safe. Then after castles, you can either bring your knight into the game immediately, but there's no hurry. The knight is fine on h6. I would play d6 here.
Okay, and when he takes, I take with pawn, right?
Yeah, take with the pawn, and then notice that the e-file has also opened, so you can bring the rook to e8.
Okay, that sounds good.
No, I mean, I can just sense that you have good understanding in these positions. There's a lot more to talk about, but that's basically everything that's been played against you in the accelerated. Ludwig played bishop b5, and you beat him. And, okay, so what I'm noticing, really the only thing I'm noticing you do consistently wrong is this move e5. So against Ludwig, what happened was he played here, which is a bit of an empty move. So it was this. Now you castled, he castled. And guess what move you played?
He pushed the pawn, I guess. No?
Yeah, you played e5.
Oh, I pushed the pawn.
Yeah, but what should you do here? And this is a bit tougher because you can't really play d6. So what do you think you should do here with black?
Is it just chase the bishop away?
Exactly. Go ahead. Now, if the bishop moves back, then...
I'm still just wanting to push it, right?
And here's the thing. Now that you've played the move b5, your bishop on c8 can go where?
It can go to b7.
That's the double fianchetto. The bishop exerts pressure on the pawn. That's an ideal scenario. If the bishop moves backward, then you can play b5, but you can also now play d6 and get the bishop out this way.
Okay, that makes sense.
Very simple. Emphasis on development, preventing e5, and you almost never play e5 yourself or even e6.
Okay, yeah, I just need to remember that, I think.
And practice. You know, you're doing everything right. You just need a lot of practice games. What we're going to do also next time is we're going to delve a little bit deeper into some of these games and talk about some middle game ideas. But for now, I want you to really master the opening moves, which you're in the process of doing. Let's talk a little bit about d4. Because you mentioned that you were struggling a little bit against this move.
I don't know what my stats are on it, but in almost pretty much every game over the last 2 days, I play what Levy taught, which was going pretty much the exact same Sicilian on this side.
Okay, and that's called the Dutch.
Yeah, the Dutch.
Your stats are actually quite good here, so let's just review. I definitely like that choice. It's a very it's an opening that's similar in spirit to what you're playing with the Accelerated Dragon. So, although it has a bit of a less cool name.
Yeah, the Accelerated Dragon just sounds so nice.
But the Dutch is a bit of a dubious reputation, but wrongly so. It's actually a very solid opening. Okay, so two people play bishop f4 against you. I just want to test you on the main ideas here.
Okay. Yeah, I think I castle first and then I block, don't I?
Yeah.
Okay.
You castle. E3.
So in a lot of games, I know I play this and then push the E pawn.
And that's the ultimate idea. That's the correct plan.
Okay, cool.
Now, can you push the E pawn here?
No.
Like a good idea. Obviously, you can, but
yeah.
Will you get your nuts chopped off if you do that? Wow.
Well, just so because of that bishop move, what does that threaten with the plan? Actually, I was looking at the C pawn here, but I don't think that's right.
Well, don't I mean, first, what should White do here?
He just takes with pawn first.
Takes with pawn and then takes with the knight.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
So the ultimate idea is to go e5, but this needs to be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you prepare it?
I can bring my knight over to g4.
Ideally, you'd want to prepare it by developing pieces, though.
Oh, I just bring my knight to c6 then.
Very good. And one of the cool things about the Dutch is that if White plays d5 to attack your knight, you have a very, very strong response. You can actually play e5. I don't know if Levy showed you this idea, but this is an important idea in the Dutch. Now, why does this move work? First of all, what happens if he just takes your knight?
I take his bishop.
You take his bishop, and that's a very important bishop. This is a very beneficial trade for black, and then you can take his pawn. If the bishop moves, then you just move the knight, and you've succeeded in playing e5. If he takes en passant, then
I just take the pawn.
You just take on e6, and you've got a great position. Then you can play h6, g5. So does that make sense?
Makes sense. Okay.
Now let's say that White castles. Here, you have to be accurate.
So black to play right now?
Yeah. And I think I've seen you play this correct move before, and I'm pretty sure Levy talked about this idea. It's a knight move.
Is it going to e4?
Yeah. And there's a couple of ideas. So first of all, you open up the diagonal for the bishop. So now e5 actually has been prepared. But this trade on e4, it may look weird that you're doubling the pawns, but the reality is there's a tactic here that makes everything work out for black. So let's say the knight moves back to d2. Find this tactic for black. And it's an overloading tactic.
So I'm just looking to reinforce that pawn.
Believe it or not, you don't give a damn about this pawn.
Okay, so that's worthless to the attack. Okay.
Yeah, the rook is kind of staring at the bishop.
Yeah.
What's defending that bishop?
Just a pawn.
Just a pawn. And that's a very sort of fragile situation, right? That pawn on e3, pawns are very often overloaded because it's not only defending the bishop.
Oh, so do I just take that d pawn with the knight and then win the bishop?
Exactly. You take the pawn with the knight, and if he takes back, then you play rook takes f4, and you defend this pawn. By the way.
Okay.
But of course, White doesn't have to take the knight. White can take your pawn.
Right.
And you can take his bishop. He takes your knight. Now, nobody has won anything, but you have made a very big gain because you've eliminated an important bishop. You've opened up your bishop, and you basically have the two bishop advantage now. Now, how about this bishop? Where can it go? Where should it develop itself to?
I'm looking at f5.
I see actually a more sexy option for the bishop. Don't forget about the double fianchetto.
Okay, so I just want to... Do I want to do the same idea? a6, then b5?
Why a6, b5? Why can't you just fianchetto it straight away?
So just push it up one and then go in?
Exactly.
Okay.
And why do I notice the idea of the fianchetto? Because White is missing his light squared bishop. You just took it. So if White had a light squared bishop, he could have just put it on f3. But when your opponent doesn't have a bishop of one particular color and you do, consider fianchettoing that bishop because it's going to be super strong on that long diagonal and it's going to be uncontested. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
So in terms of attacking the king, this is a very good idea. So knight e4 is an idea. You're basically preparing e5. And not everybody's going to get their bishop to 4. Some of your opponents played e3, which is a very bad move. Just keeps the bishop behind the pawn chain. Now you just castle, you play d6. Knight c6, and then you play e5. And I think this is a good opening. Have you felt okay in the Dutch?
Yeah, I think so for the most part. It's just I think a lot of times I don't know where to go. Like, I pretty much, no matter what they play the exact same 5 moves without fail. And I don't know if there's
that's basically the case.
Okay, is that like the right way of doing that, or should I be looking for other things instead of just staying so like textbook with it?
Well, there's you are going to end up making these moves, but it's good practice to at least pay attention to what your opponent is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And your opponent could do something crazy, like he could play e4 in this position, which would allow you to do what?
I just take.
You just take the pawn, right? So you want to look dynamically at what your opponent is doing, because some of your opponents are going to do some crazy stuff, just because of the nature of playing an opening like this at your level. Like, people don't know it. But what I really want to emphasize here, no matter what white does, your main plan is going to be to play e5.
Mm-hmm.
But if for whatever reason you're having a hard time preparing e5, try to make natural moves, try to develop your pieces, and don't shoot yourself in the foot, because white has ways of trying to discourage you from playing e5. So that's going to come with practice. I'm definitely going to pay attention to your Dutch games, but by and large, yes, you play the same 5 moves against everything, as long as you just pay more attention to what they're doing.
Okay, so then for this here, let's say I bring knight to c6, he pushes pawn up. Where do I want that knight to go next?
Right, so let's say castles knight c6. Now, you want this knight to go to e5.
Okay, so he takes that spot.
So knight takes that spot, and if knight takes, you take with a pawn. Now, at first sight, it may seem like, well, what are we doing, right? The pawns are doubled. But in addition, our bishop is now biting on the pawn. But this pawn on e5, what can happen to it? What can you do with that pawn?
I can just push it up right now.
You can push it up. And what's going to happen is not only does our bishop open, but his bishop is closed. And you've got a beautiful pawn chain here. So you've got a great position. Now, this pawn on d5, you can undermine that pawn. You can get rid of it with what move?
My double pawn right there, push it to e6, right?
And that's why doubled pawns can be so good, right? The other pawn, both pawns can have a very important responsibility. So you play e6, you've got a good free position, and then you can bring a rook to d8. It really depends on what white does at that point.
Okay, makes sense. So,
no, I mean, as a kind of introductory, you know all the introductory ideas. It's just going to be all about getting practice, and I'm going to be paying attention to your games as well. And with white, you and Levy did talk about the Vienna Gambit, right?
Yeah, so that's one that every time I run it, pretty much the same thing happens. They always take and I push, and I guess I don't know where I should go there to make the most of the position.
Okay, let's maybe review that quickly.
Okay.
And then next time we'll really emphasize that. Now, let me just see.
King of all legends.
Your white games, what people actually do. So e4, e5.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Okay, so they usually go here, right?
I'd say at least 50% go there, so then I play the gambit here. They usually always take and I push.
Right, so they basically have to get their knight back to g8.
Yeah. And then
okay, so,
usually I play this to attack that pawn and reinforce that one, but I don't know if that's right because I don't quite remember.
So believe it or not, that's a mistake.
Okay.
And the reason that that's a mistake, and nobody actually exploited this against you, but black has a very nasty move, queen h4 check.
Somebody did play this, yeah, and that.
Oh, okay, so somebody did play it.
Yeah.
And
I saw this once.
You can see why this is annoying, because normally you would have the move g3 normally, but here you don't have it because of f takes g3.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to move your king out. And so what developing move can you make to stop queen h4?
I just played knight next at f3.
You play knight f3, and you actually did play this, I think, once. And your opponent played the move. So you actually played this correctly. One second. Let me actually check my notes.
That's sweet. Thanks, Alex.
So knight f3, d6. I did analyze this. So knight f3, your opponent played d6. And now you continue to develop your pieces, which I really like. How?
I bring in the bishop, right? I bring it to c4.
You bring the bishop to c4. But actually, sorry, give me a second. I'm checking my own analysis here. Yeah, in my notes, d4 is a better move, but I actually like bishop c4. Bishop c4 is good. And after d takes c5?
That pawn's hanging, so I just take that pawn.
Go ahead. Now your opponents in this position played the move bishop to d6.
So, real quick though, if I do take this, can't he deliver that same check, forcing me to move my king again?
That's what I was analyzing. So he can, but that check is not nearly as dangerous as it would be earlier, because now you have this f1 square for the king.
Okay.
This is not the greatest square in the world, but look at how many pieces you've developed and how many pieces he's developed.
Okay.
So this is a very, very... Black can survive here if he's super precise, but nobody's going to know, and you can trust me on this, exactly how to play in this position. And a case in point is that your opponent played bishop to d6, which allows one move.
Oh, that just, wait. From here?
Yeah, white to play.
Yeah, it just gives me this.
You just take, and after queen h4?
I move here, and then I take the rook.
Yeah. You take the rook. Now, you got to be a little bit careful. Let's say they go bishop to g4. Here, you have to continue being precise because they're attacking your queen.
Yeah, I can't drop my bishop because then I hang my knight, right?
Exactly. That's a good point.
Okay. Do I just look to trade queens here since I'm in the better position?
Exactly.
Okay.
Because you're going to win the rook afterward. So you play queen e1 check, nicely done. Takes, and then you take the rook.
Okay, cool.
So, and queen h4, you play king f1, and just maybe one or two more moves here. So the good players will give you that check, and then most people who recognize the threat of knight takes f7, I think that they're going to play the move bishop to e6 to try to get your bishop off of that square. But now you take on e6, and you have another very active move. You see that this pawn is undefended. How can you attack it?
I can just develop the queen, right?
Very good. And black's only way of defending that pawn is to play c6. But now you can simply play d3 and take the pawn with the bishop and bring the rook, and you've got pretty much an overwhelming position.
Okay, cool. Okay, that makes sense.
And yeah, but the key point is to play knight f3 here.
Yeah,
rather than
instead of pushing that d pawn right away.
And eventually you can play d4 and you can recover the pawn, but the emphasis is not on recovering the pawn. So we'll work on this more next time because I don't want to overwhelm you with too many openings. I know it's very tedious. So what do you say we jump in maybe for
sure
one or two more games to round it off?
That sounds good to me. All right, let's run it.
Let's do it.
Oh, let's see if we get right into a Vienna.
All right. Okay, so that's just blunders a pawn.
Yeah, baby.
Nice.
All right. So
careful about what you want to take with.
Yeah, so I usually take with the B pawn, but I see I'd hang that pawn, so I have to take with the D pawn.
Nice. Thinking on your feet.
Just chase this away, I think, right?
Sure.
Still protecting the pawn.
Right. Now, if you want to protect that pawn to the point where you don't have to worry about it...
I just push this.
Yep. Good. Now, this is a good example of where you can actually castle to the other side.
Yeah.
And you can basically start attacking his king. But to attack his king, you need to open a file.
Yeah.
To open a file, you need to use your pawns.
So do I just want to immediately start doing that? So G4 now?
Yeah, exactly. And you're going to open up the G file. What's going to occupy that G file?
It's going to be the H knight.
You mean the rook?
Or rook, sorry. Okay. Yeah.
All right, but first, be careful.
Yeah, so positions here. I don't really want to tuck my queen on G3 since I want my rook there, right? So do I just want to I just want to drop it like all the way back to what, like...
Well, E3 is good because that blockades the pawn. You use the pawn kind of as an umbrella, right? So he can't chase the queen away with rook E8. And in addition, you can see that the queen is making contact with the G5 square. So if you go like rook G1 and then G5, you'll be able to take that pawn with the queen in the future.
Okay.
And then you'll have a battery on the G file. So. Right, you can go ahead and execute that plan. Very good. So it makes sense why we're putting a rook on G1 first.
Yeah.
You're trying to, when you play G5, you want that move to be as strong as possible.
That's not threatening anything, right?
Nope.
He still has 2 moves to make that work, so I still want to just push this, right?
Right, and it's good. I'm glad that you kind of asked yourself that. And he really can't make anything work. Even if he attacks that B2 pawn with his queen, even if he takes that pawn, it's not going to be checkmate. You'll have the D2 square for your king. It might be unpleasant, but it's not going to be mate.
Okay, so if...
So that's a great example. You can actually just ignore the threat against your pawn.
Yeah, do I just want to take the knight then?
Yeah, because your threats against his king are going to be 1,000,000 times stronger than his threats against your king.
Okay, that makes sense then. So now I'm just bringing the king up. That's the only move I have.
Very good.
Thanks to the Resub Chronics and the Prime Pete.
Okay, now all you have to do is find a way to evade the checks.
Do I... blocking it with the pawn's probably not a good idea, right? Because he just takes with the knight.
But then you take his knight.
So then we just make this full trade here?
Right, but you're going to be up 2 bishops. And that comes back to what we talked about in the beginning. Don't be afraid to trade queens when you're attacking, because you understand that's fine. You're going to be up a piece. He's playing this well. He's doing the best he can. But if he takes on c3 with a queen, then yes, you trade queens. Okay. So now think about... so what I would do... Well...
This pawn is hanging right here, and that's what I noticed, but then I give up the control of the c square.
Yeah, you can risk it. You can take on h6, and you'll be able to evade the checks there.
Okay.
But you've got to be careful. He's going to take the pawn on c3, and then you've got to walk your king up and zigzag your way out of this. You could have also blocked your third queen and traded. Oh shit, he's got this check. Okay, you can bring your king back. I actually missed this check. Be totally frank with you.
It's all good.
But you can block with your rook.
Alright. And he'll probably just bring queen down.
And then you'll bring your king up to e2.
Okay.
He's surprising me very much with his resilience, I have to say. King, get that king up. And then you can centralize it on d4, and that king's going to be safe. If he checks you on e1, oh, you actually have a really sexy move. You can block that check with... Oh, I would have blocked it with
the bishop. I see.
It's okay. He'll repeat moves. He'll play queen c1. You'll come back to d2. But by blocking with the bishop, you are disallowing any checks, and you're going to lobster pincer mate.
I see.
Yeah. All he can do is give you a couple of spite checks. It's over. No, this guy definitely played well. But you can see that it was a little scary, but you managed to evade the checks. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we do one more and then a couple of notes on these two on the games, and then we'll wrap up?
The bishop move I wouldn't have even thought of because it hangs the rook, and I wouldn't have even
But
thought
you're threatening checkmate.
Yeah, it didn't even occur to me. That makes a lot of sense though.
Okay. That's good for me to know. Maybe a 5-minute game, or you're in a 3-minute mode?
We can do 5-minute. I haven't done a 5-minute game in so long.
Because the pawn champs are 10 plus 5, so you'll definitely have time.
Thanks to resub, Diana. I can't play the Vienna against this, right?
Right, he's playing the perk.
So here, do I want to just keep developing, or do I want to chase the bishop away first?
Well, you can also control the center with your pawns.
Yeah.
Remember that he's not played e5 or c5, so you need to punish him for that.
Okay.
Exactly. That's actually a mainline theory. Now you can deal with this bishop. All right. So he's taken on f3, which is kind of a mistake.
I just want to push this right now, don't I? Bring it up to d5.
Yeah. Grab that space.
Mm-hmm.
Grab that space.
I can feel mean shit cooking up right now. Good lord. Bring queen back to starting position, or is there a more active square for her? Let's see.
You can bring it back to the starting position. No problem. And I want you to practice that. Sometimes these retreating moves, they can be disconcerting to the opponent. But because that knight on e5, you can get it the fuck out of there.
Yeah, so do I want to do that with the bishop or the f-pawn?
Well, do it as forcefully as possible. If you do it with the bishop, then he doesn't have to move the pawn, right?
Yep, so just do it with the pawn then.
Yep, go ahead. And then you can complete your development. You can move the bishop out, you can castle.
Is this one of the situations I'd want to castle long, considering the pawn structure on my king side?
Well, why don't you try?
Okay.
That's an interesting strategy. I'll put it this way: it's risky, but in the next week or two, I do want you to try all of these creative approaches. I give you the green light.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So bringing the bishop. Do I want to bring the bishop to d2 as opposed to e3?
Why? You want to bring it out as actively as possible.
Okay, so bring it to e3 instead?
Yeah, and also the d2 square is a pretty decent square for the queen. But you could also bring the queen to a more active square where it protects the e4 pawn.
Oh, I just bring it back over to f3.
Good.
Thanks to resub EDM Emperor. Another question I had is, when do I want to look to open up the center?
So, normally if you have a development advantage, or he has his king in the center. But in this case, are you going to try to attack in the center?
No, we're going to be more on the king side.
On the king side. So keeping the center relatively close is actually good for you. That way you don't have to worry about it. Now, that knight on h5, he's trying to put barriers to your attack. Can you get that knight out of there?
Yeah, I can just push up this g-pawn.
Exactly. He's probably going to take your knight on c3. Would be my guess.
Bam! Big read!
Well, I know these guys. He's going to bring his knight back, and then you have to understand, how are you going to attack his king?
So
what needs to get opened?
This H file needs to get open.
Go ahead and open it.
Okay, so push up.
Again, these guys, he's playing far above his rating right now, but
next to prime.
If he plays queen a5 here, then I don't know. Because attacking like this is not easy.
That's big.
Now that pawn on c3 is hanging.
Yeah.
I would get your king the hell out of there.
Okay.
I would evacuate it.
So just get it immediately up to d2 here.
Yeah. And notice that the a2 pawn is hanging. But do you give a shit about this pawn? Here's something you have to always tell yourself. When you are going for checkmate, you have to always set your priorities. Like when you're going for checkmate, you shouldn't worry about pawns. When you're in a quiet position, then it's a different story. Okay, so what should you do?
Finish my plan. Push this h-pawn again.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, he's going to play b4. Probably. Yeah, so now you're trying to open the H file. Okay, so now he decides to take.
Take. I bring my queen over to the H file now, right?
Well, then he'll take on E4 with check. So that knight on F6, can you try to get it out of there first?
Yeah, I have to push that first.
See the order of operations. First you clear the path, then you get the... Once you deploy the queen, it's like... I don't know why, but I was watching this airplane video where like pilots have this thing they say when they can't abort a takeoff any longer. I think it's like V8. And it's the same thing here. You want to pave the way fully for the queen before you actually go for the final. Okay, so he's gone knight h5 correctly. Now your task here, is to get that knight out of there. You need to devise a strategy to get the knight out of
I
it.
looked at e2 for the bishop and then moving my queen.
Lovely. He has a pretty strong move, knight e5 here. Okay, this is definitely a bit suspect. So that doesn't change what you have to do. You can't take the knight.
If I take the knight with pawn, what happens? Let me see.
He takes your queen.
Oh, wait, what? Oh, with the rook. Yep, the X-ray.
Yeah, so you gotta move the queen where you wanted to move it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy is, I'm not gonna say anything for sure, but he is playing very, very well. Very, very well. Nice. Oh, and the Naroditsky jinx, Charlie.
You are an absolute animal when it comes to jinxing these players.
No, but it happens even at my level. I'm playing GMs, and I'll start complimenting them, and the moment I do that, they blunder like a rook or they blunder a queen. It's like uncanny.
Damn, you need to say that more often, man.
I do. No, I just say it all the time. That's how I win all my games.
God damn.
It's just unbelievable. But, you know, I mean, I don't want to throw any shade on him, but this guy played fantastic game. So can I quickly invite you to an analysis board? Just a couple of concluding points on these two games.
For sure.
Perfect. So, first game. Invited?
Thanks to the resub, best.
All right. Now, after d5, you could have also taken with the knight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And kept the integrity of your pawn structure. Just pointing that out. You took with the pawn. So this is all good.
Is there any reason to take with the knight?
Well, to preserve your pawn structure. Like
That'd be
taking
the
with
only
the pawn,
reason.
that pawn is kind of weak.
Yeah.
So if you would have played knight f6, you would have had a hard time defending that pawn.
Okay.
There's no need to do that. You could have taken with the knight, and that way you wouldn't have any weak pawns. Now,
and
he
then
played
just drop it back.
incorrectly here, and you played perfectly. Bishop g5, bishop h4 is great, castle's long, and now you open the g file. So queen e3, does this move make sense?
Yeah.
So your queen position, it doesn't have to be literally like in your opponent's face. As long as the queen is safe, and a good way to make sure the queen is safe is that it's sheltered behind his own pawns. Rook g1, g5. Now here, let's say that you wanted to defend this pawn on b2. How could you have done that?
I just bring up the c pawn.
Very good. And that's probably would have been even more prudent. To be honest with you, I myself underestimated his chances. But as soon as queen takes h6 is played, you have to have a light bulb that goes on in your head, and you basically tell yourself, okay, I have only one goal, which is to escape the checks, and I will sacrifice anything that needs to be sacrificed in order to do that. And that's the way that you find a move like bishop e2. Because you are constantly telling yourself that if he makes a move that's not a check, then he gets checkmated. No. And by the way, here, could you find the most accurate move?
It's just just taking the knight.
Or even moving the king up to d3. Yeah.
Right.
Very good. And finally, last game. All right. I'll invite you to another board.
Thanks to the resub, Lucky Pickle.
Okay, so yeah, this guy was strong.
Thanks to the Prime Jack.
Now the move d4, that makes sense, right? He hasn't played these moves, so you kind of punish him by controlling the center. d5, queen back, f4. So if you would have played bishop f4, then he would have had the option of remaining on e5 with the knight. You could have taken and ruined his pawn structure, but here you ensure that the knight has to move back.
Okay, that makes sense.
g4 is good. So here you could have also taken his knight in order to keep your pawn structure intact. That would have just been an option, pointing that out. And if you wanted to reduce the influence of this bishop, what would you have done here? The same move that you could have done.
Yeah, I would have just pushed up the c pawn.
Right, blunting the bishop. Okay, so h4, king d2, evacuating the king. Yeah, so everything here, very logical. And in certain situations, you should also consider sacrificing on h5. Not necessarily here, but in certain situations. Even here, because what you do is you clear out the h file. And now, what are you going to do on your next move? Let's say that black plays something random. What would be the fastest way of getting the rook to h1?
I'd bring up the bishop, so I'd bring it up with what to like.
Excellent. How do you bring it up with tempo?
I mean, that knight's hanging, but that also blocks my rook, so it probably wouldn't be h3.
But here's the thing. I want to make, after you play bishop h3, that bishop can, and that you make a good point about the h file. But let's say the knight moves. Where can this bishop go?
F4. Or F5, sorry.
Or even. What other square?
Deliver a check all the way at e6. I see now.
It can drive the king into the corner, and now?
And now I bring the rook over.
And now you bring the rook over. And he's got a couple of checks here. But you can sidestep the checks. You can go up, and then you could zigzag back down, and then even you could go king d2 right into the teeth, and he's got no checks. So, or I guess king f3 is more accurate to defend the pawn. And you win the game with a checkmate. So these sacrifices you have to consider. When you have this priority of getting a rook to h1, that's when you have to allow yourself the opportunity to sack. But I like the move bishop e2. And, okay, of course, he made it a bit easier for you, but knight c4 check would have been the unpleasant move.
Do I just take that? No,
well,
I can't.
What's the problem with taking? Like, what happens now?
No, I can't take that knight. I can't pressure the h-file.
This gets very messy. I mean, maybe you can move the king. He takes your bishop. This is anybody's game. But nonetheless, I think you played very well. You demonstrated all the key attacking ideas. So I would say in the next couple of days, maybe, and not my business to tell you what to do, but I would put the emphasis on 5-minute games.
Okay, go back to 5.
Here's an opportunity to practice the openings and practice. We talked about a lot of concepts today through the problems, and I really want you to be able to cement them. So you can play a mix of 3 and 5, but PogChamps is going to be 10 plus 5. So even by playing 5-minute, you're already challenging yourself.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
And, you know, grind the problems as well, the puzzles. You're in fantastic tactical form. I'm really happy with the progress. Next time we'll work more intensely on white openings, and I'll prepare drills based on the exercises that you struggled with today, and we'll keep on hammering at the various concepts.
All right, that sounds great to me, man. Thank you.
Fantastic, Charlie. My pleasure. I think we're making great progress, and despite all that I've said today, I'm pretty happy. So thanks again for getting up so early. It's always a pleasure, man.
Yeah, of course, man. Anytime. Just hit me up whenever you're free.
Fantastic. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Looking forward to the next session, Charlie. Have a great rest of the stream.
You too, man. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, not my finest day. I missed a lot of tactical ideas and a lot of easy moves, but not terrible either. So I've only been playing 3-minute games for the last week, trying to get faster at moves, and it's been pretty fucking rough. Thanks to the resub, Chris. It's been pretty fucking garbage for a lot of the games. But today was solid. That's sweet. Thank you, Crispy. Hey, good morning, peasant. Sorry, I just saw that. 3-minute games will reverse progress. The only reason I was using them is just to make moves faster, get faster at openings. That's really about it. And I think it definitely helped with that. I think I play a lot faster than I used to. Even in this 5-minute game here, I think I had a 40-second advantage or something. I think it's doing what I wanted it to, even though I've lost a lot of fucking games because of it. Thanks, Drain Lord. Beautiful. You think you'll beat XQC this time? What do you mean this time? I beat him last time. In a legendary showing of 6 moves. But I've watched some of his chess games. He's pretty good. He's pretty fucking strong. Man's been on the grind. When's the tournament? No idea. I have no idea. XQC is 1200, I saw. My highest is 1100 before all the 3-minute games, so I'd say we're pretty close when it comes to the ranking. It's Valentine's Day, February 14th. Okay. Alright, well I have to take a fat shit. I'm going to assume Daniel's still streaming would be my guess. I mean, it looks like he is, so I'm just gonna toss you to Daniel for some more chess today. He was the one that was teaching me, for those that don't know. Thanks for the gift sub, Desire. So thanks everyone for tuning in. To everyone who donated, a big thank you. New subs, welcome aboard. Sub means a lot to me. Thank you for subbing. Sorry if I didn't get to your name right away today. I was just trying to pay attention to the lesson, and just want you to know that it really does mean a lot to me. So thank you very much, and I will stream again tonight, probably around like 8. So like 8 hours from now. So I'll see you all then. Take it easy, everyone. Thanks again. See ya.